The air inside the grand hall felt heavier than usual that morning, thick with the unspoken tension of old money and older grudges. Velvet curtains framed the tall windows, letting in shafts of pale sunlight that glinted off the gold-framed portraits of ancestors who had all died with secrets. The long mahogany table was lined with faces, some anxious, some smug, others pretending indifference but clearly burning with curiosity. At the end of the table sat a young woman, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her name was Clara Bennett, the granddaughter everyone had forgotten existed until today. Her mother had married outside the family's circle of wealth and pride, and ever since, Clara had been the invisible shadow they never spoke of. Yet today, she had received a letter summoning her to the reading of her late grandfather's will. The murmurs started the moment she walked in. Her dress was simple, pale blue cotton with a faint tear at the sleeve she hadn't noticed until she sat down. Around her were glittering jewels, polished watches, and designer suits. They didn't need to say a word. Clara could feel their laughter like needles pricking her skin. "Did you see what she's wearing?" whispered Evelyn, her aunt, leaning toward her husband. George would roll in his grave if he saw her here. Her husband smirked. "Maybe she came to clean up after the reading. Someone has too." Clara heard it all but kept her gaze fixed on the polished surface of the table, watching her reflection blur as tears threatened. She blinked them away. She didn't belong here, but something in her heart had told her to come. Her grandfather had always been kind to her when she was a child, when no one else had. Before the fights, before the family tore itself apart over who deserved his attention and who didn't.
"Excuse me," she said sharply, her voice cutting through the noise. "Would you mind not dripping that dirty water near my yacht? It smells like old fish." Samuel paused, his weathered hands gripping the mop handle. "Apologies, ma'am," he said softly, his tone calm and respectful. "Just trying to finish before the sun gets too hot." Her lips curled into a mocking smile. "Finish somewhere else," she replied. "You're leaving streaks on the dock. Do you even know how to clean properly?" A few people nearby chuckled. Isabella turned to her friends, smirking. "You'd think people working around luxury yachts would at least know what polish looks like." Her words stung, but Samuel said nothing. He simply nodded, moved his bucket aside, and continued his work silently at the next slip. To her, it was a moment of superiority, a way to assert her place in a world built on image. To him, it was just another reminder that people rarely saw beyond a uniform. Hours passed. The marina grew busier as preparations for the evening began. Workers carried boxes of decorations, chefs unloaded crates of fine food, and technicians tested the sound system aboard Elysium. Isabella oversaw everything, her perfectionism bordering on obsession. She wanted this night to outshine every other party of the season. As the sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in orange and pink, something unexpected happened. A faint alarm echoed from inside the Elysium. Then, a louder clunking sound reverberated through the hull. The yacht's crew rushed below deck, their faces tight with concern. Within minutes, the engines fell silent. The elegant hum of machinery that usually powered the yacht's system stopped completely. "What's going on?" Isabella demanded, striding onto the deck. "Ma'am," the captain said cautiously, "it seems we have a mechanical fault in the main engine control system. Possibly the generator link. We're running diagnostics now." "Fix it," she snapped. "We have less than 3 hours before guests arrive. This yacht needs to be ready." The captain nodded and hurried off, shouting orders. Technicians came aboard, carrying toolboxes and laptops. For over an hour, they tried everything, rebooting systems, checking circuits, replacing fuses, but nothing worked. The lights flickered uncertainly, and the air conditioning cut in and out. Without power, the yacht couldn't even host the evening event. Word spread quickly across the marina. People whispered that the Delacroix yacht had gone dead. Isabella's frustration boiled over. "You're all useless," she shouted at the technicians. "Do you even know what you're doing? I'm paying a fortune for this boat, and you can't keep it running for one night." As she stood fuming, her father, a tall man with a quiet but authoritative presence, approached. "Isabella," he said gently, "shouting won't solve it. Maybe we should delay the party." "Delay it," she said, aghast. "Are you serious? Do you know how many people are coming? My reputation." Before she could finish, a voice spoke from the dock below. "Excuse me, miss," it said softly. Everyone turned. It was Samuel, standing near the edge of the yacht, holding his cap in his hands. His face was calm but serious. I couldn't help overhearing. If it's an electrical fault or an engine issue, maybe I can take a look. The crew exchanged glances. Isabella laughed incredulously. You're a janitor. What could you possibly know about a yacht worth more than your entire life? Samuel didn't flinch. You might be surprised what a man can learn over the years, he replied quietly. The captain hesitated. Miss, at this point, we've tried everything. It couldn't hurt to let him check. Isabella rolled her eyes. Fine, but if he breaks something, it's coming out of your paycheck, not mine. Samuel climbed aboard carefully, setting down his mop and rolling up his sleeves. His hands, though worn, moved with practiced precision. He asked the captain a few questions, short, direct ones that made the crew exchange curious looks. Within minutes, he was below deck, opening panels and tracing wires. He worked silently, occasionally humming that same quiet tune from the morning. Isabella watched from above, her arms crossed. This is ridiculous, she muttered. But as the minutes passed, the crew began whispering among themselves. Samuel's movements weren't random. He seemed to know exactly where to look. He bypassed panels, rerouted circuits, and adjusted valves with the ease of someone who had done this many times before. After nearly 40 minutes, a sudden low hum filled the air. Lights flickered on, steady and strong. The air conditioning kicked back to life. The control systems on the bridge began to glow with color. The yacht was alive again. The crew stared in disbelief. The captain ran diagnostics, eyes widening. Everything's back online, he said. Engine control, power grid, even the stabilizers are balanced. How? Samuel emerged from below, wiping his hands on a rag. Just a faulty junction box and a corroded bypass relay, he said modestly. Happens a lot when these sit too long without proper grounding. Should be fine now, but I'd replace that relay before your next voyage. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, a burst of applause came from one of the crew members. Soon others joined in. Even the captain smiled, but Isabella stood frozen, her expression unreadable. The man she had mocked hours earlier had just saved her event, her pride, and her family's reputation. Her father stepped forward, extending a hand to Samuel. Thank you, sir, he said sincerely. You may have just saved the evening. Samuel shook his hand humbly. Just doing what I can, sir. Isabella finally found her voice. Wait, she said, stepping closer. How did you know all that? Who are you, really? Samuel smiled faintly. Just someone who's spent a lot of years around engines, he said. Used to build them before I cleaned around them. Her father looked at him closely. Samuel Reed, weren't you the chief engineer at Kingston Marine back in the 90s? The old man nodded slowly. That's right. Before the company downsized and replaced us with automation. Been here ever since. A murmur spread through the small crowd. Kingston Marine was legendary for designing some of the best yacht engines in the world. Isabella's eyes widened slightly, realization dawning. The man she had mocked was a retired engineer, one of the best in his field. Her cheeks flushed, and for once, she had no clever words. She looked away, embarrassed. Her father noticed, but said nothing. Instead, he clapped Samuel on the shoulder. If you ever want your old line of work back, I'd be proud to have you on our maintenance team. Samuel gave a small smile. I appreciate that, sir. But I'm content where I am. These docks have been my home for a long time. As he gathered his tools and began to leave, Isabella took a hesitant step forward. Wait, she said quietly. He turned. Her voice softened. I'm sorry for what I said earlier. I was wrong. Samuel nodded gently. Apology accepted, miss. Just remember, every person you meet knows something you don't. Those words lingered long after he walked away. That evening, the Elysium shone brighter than ever. The party went on as planned, laughter and music echoing across the water. But Isabella wasn't quite the same. She found herself glancing toward the docks, half expecting to see the quiet old janitor moving along with his mop and bucket, humming that familiar tune. When she asked one of the dock hands about him later, she learned that Samuel didn't come back after that night. Some said he retired, others said he'd gone to work for a small workshop nearby. But Isabella never forgot his words or the humility in his eyes. Months later, when she commissioned a new yacht, she had a small brass plate installed in the engine room. It read simply.
Her eyes blurred as she read. This cottage holds more than memories. It holds the truth. I built my empire not from inheritance, but from discovery. What I left behind for you is something the others would not understand. It is not gold or property, but purpose. Inside this box are papers that will lead you to the project I never finished. You always had the heart to see beyond wealth. That's why I chose you. Clara unfolded the documents, maps, sketches, and old letters marked, confidential. They spoke of a foundation her grandfather had secretly funded, an initiative to restore the small town's schools, hospitals, and nature reserves. He'd hidden it from the rest of the family, fearing they'd exploit it for profit. Tears rolled down her cheeks. He hadn't left her the least valuable thing. He'd left her the most meaningful one. As she read through the papers, she began to realize that this was his true legacy, a chance to carry forward what he believed in, something that mattered more than money. Back at the mansion, the family was already bickering over assets. Rumors of Clara's inheritance spread quickly. The cottage. Evelyn sneered over lunch. Let her have it. It's probably falling apart. But 3 weeks later, when they received an invitation with a golden seal that read, "The Bennett Foundation, Reborn," they were stunned. Clara stood on the steps of the old mansion, dressed elegantly, her presence calm and strong. Cameras flashed. Local reporters surrounded her. "I stand here today to honor my grandfather's real dream," she said clearly. He wanted his wealth to serve the people who built it. This foundation will fund scholarships, rebuild hospitals, and protect the land he loved. In the front row, her relatives sat frozen. The same lawyer who had read the will now stood beside her, his face unreadable. When the ceremony ended, Evelyn approached her, her tone uncertain. "You did all this?" Clara looked at her steadily. "I just followed what he wanted. He believed in something you never saw." Mr. Hargrove handed her a small envelope as the press began to disperse. "Your grandfather's final letter," he said. She opened it quietly. It read, "My dear girl, they will laugh until the truth humbles them. You were never meant to inherit their world. You were meant to build a better one." Clara folded the letter carefully and smiled. Back then, during the reading of the will, they had laughed at her. Now, they couldn't even meet her eyes. The lawyer stood once more, proud, knowing that justice had finally been served, not through gold or vengeance, but through the wisdom of a man who saw the future in the heart of a girl everyone had underestimated. And as the sun dipped over the lake, reflecting golden light across the water, Clara finally felt at peace. She whispered softly into the breeze, "Thank you, Grandpa. I understand now." The laughter that had once haunted her was gone, replaced by silence, an odd, humbled silence that said more than any apology ever could.